On this episode of Halton Footy Corner, we chat with two-time League One Ontario leading goal scorer Jade Kovacevic about the 2 European offers she turned down last fall. We stop in at Soccer World to find out about which boots are best for which situation. But first, we meet up with League One Ontario Commissioner Dino Rossi to learn what's happening with the league in 2018.
Now, some of you guys may know, I do have a hand in the production of the live stream broadcasts for League One Ontario, so it's a personal pleasure of mine to be able to interview League One Commissioner Dino Rossi about how he got involved in the league and what he wants to see come of this league in the coming years. So let's head on over to the Arms and get this thing done.
Welcome back to Halton Footy Corner, guys. We're joined here with League One Commissioner Dino Rossi. Now, Dino, I wanted to talk to you about where it all kind of began for you, in my eyes, as far as someone observing your connection with the game. And that was when I first became aware of you, was with Milltown FC. I want to know how that became a thing, I guess, because it struck me at the time as a weird proposition to put a team in the town of Milton. How did that come about?
Well, you know, there is an interesting story behind it. It was really a supporter-based initiative initially. You know, I've been a fan of Canadian soccer national teams for a long, long time, and a conversation on one of the message boards started, hey, what if we started a club? And I love the idea, and I'm a big fan of these kinds of grassroots initiatives. I hosted a few meetings in fact. People got excited, we got together. But as things work out, you know, not everybody who attended the meeting was prepared to, you know, put more than just words forward, needed some money to make it happen. I brought together a few people who were prepared to invest in starting this club. And we approached at the time the Canadian Soccer League about you know, what our opportunities were to start a club. I'm from Mississauga, but the Mississauga territory wasn't available. I live very, very close to Milton. I identified it as a market that was growing very quickly and had some great facilities available. And so we jumped at the opportunity to try to pioneer something in an area that had nothing like it. And it was quite a roller coaster ride. It was a lot of fun. I often call it the most expensive sport MBA project that you could ever do. It was not by any means a money maker, but it was a passion project. I loved every minute of it. It was a ton of work, but I learned so much, and it is in some ways shaped the way I look at the sport and what the sport needs to move forward at the grassroots senior level. And it's a lot of the reason why I'm sitting here today as Commissioner of League One.
All right, fantastic. Now, with that, you talk about the learning experiences there, and I have to imagine that part of that learning curve is the difficulties that the CSL went through. With that, I want to know if there was any apprehension for you now as League One Commissioner bringing in Unionville Milliken, as they're going to be part and parcel. A lot of players and a lot of the ownership group that were part of the CSL team associated with the York Region Shooters.
Well, Unionville Milliken Soccer Club is a very highly regarded community club in the Ontario soccer community. They're part of the OPDL program. They had a very successful women's League One team in 2017. They approached us about wanting to come in 2018 with a men's team, but they wanted to take a different tact. They wanted to declare as a professional team. And for me, that is something that I've been wanting to see a club step forward and do. Toronto FC3, of course, is declared as a professional team, but that was the only one. And we would really like to see over time more and more clubs trend in that direction. The fact that the club is, it's not owned, but it's rather sponsored by a gentleman who was involved for many years in the Canadian Soccer League, and there are many players who come over from the York Region Shooters program and from others. Doesn't concern me, because you really have to judge the merits of the individual coming forward, and if they're good people and they've got a good reputation in the community and in the game, then there's very little risk. But obviously, with anybody, any group that would be coming in as a professional club, you want to make sure that the club itself is sustainable. The model that they've chosen to operate with is a sustainable model, that the players are getting paid as they're promised. And those are things, that's the responsibility of the league in an oversight role to make sure those things are taking place.
Now, that's not the only big change that we're going to be seeing with League One this year. You guys have changed a lot of things, like the format of how the playoffs are run and how the season's going to operate. What brought about those changes?
We're still a very young league, and I think we have some purists, myself being one of them, who really believes in the idea that the regular season, quote unquote, means something, and being strong over the length of the year has to be valued and rewarded. But at the same time, building rosters in a league like League One is challenging, and some clubs, they may not be 100% ready to put their best foot forward on April 27, 28, 29 when we kick off this year. It might take a couple of weeks. You have players coming back from school, you have players who are finishing exams in university or college, or even high school in some cases. So the preseason training camps are not the same for every organization. It differs. With that, we felt that allowing a bit more of a carrot to clubs to stay engaged over the length of the season, because now with an expanded playoff format for both the men and the women, having a slow start doesn't mean it's the end of the road, that by June, July, you're playing for pride only. So we're very excited to see what the outcome of this experiment is going to be. We're going to stick with it for a couple of years, I suspect. We don't want to be constantly tinkering, but at the same time, we're new enough that we can try to play with our structure a little bit to find what fits us best. Our clubs are quite excited. There was overwhelming support for this model. I'm really keen to have a women's final this year. Last year we did our first ever championship final for our men, and we packed the house at the Ontario Soccer Centre. The environment was amazing. The atmosphere was electric. It was when Oakville Blue Devils won the title, and you see all these kids rush the field to mob their heroes. You don't get that same focal point like you do when you hand out a trophy to somebody who wins the league. It can be kind of anticlimactic. They might have won it away in front of none of their home fans, and which Oakville did the first time they won in Brampton. There was just them to celebrate, which was fine, but this was special, and we're excited to do the same thing on the women's side, and really be able to generate some electricity and some excitement around the giving of our biggest prize.
Now, you talk about how things are evolving with the league, and one of the big obstacles that I perceive for the league is the introduction of the Canadian Premier League. How is that going to affect how rosters are built moving forward? Because you're going to have a lot of players who are moving up through those systems be taken away and moved on to these other clubs. And I've heard some concerns from some coaches about how that's going to affect the quality of their squad. What do you think that means moving forward for your league?
It's inevitably on the men's side going to have an impact. That we just don't know at this point what that impact is, and it's difficult when your job is to build strategic plans for an organization to really not know what your future holds while you're in a bit of a holding pattern waiting for this new entity to come forward with its plans. But I'll start off by saying I am a massive advocate for the Canadian Premier League, because ultimately what League One is about is creating a platform and an opportunity for players to achieve their ambition. And in Canada, for a very long time, The door to professional opportunities for Canadian players has been getting narrower and narrower, even with the growth of professional soccer in North America. You know, MLS has three teams in Canada. There's the Ottawa Fury and the USL, and the USL itself on the men's side has a pretty liberal policy when it comes to roster rules and allowing Canadian players to play. So you see a fair number of them in that league, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, there's really still not a league that is designed to cater to the needs of the Canadian player and to partner with the Canadian clubs at the grassroots level who are doing the development work. So, you know, first and foremost, we're excited about the CPL and we're excited about the opportunities it holds for our players. Of course, there is going to be some weakening of the general level in the league. We have a lot of experienced players in this league who are ready to take that next step. But in a way that what that does is if let's say 20, 30 players, 40 players move on, that just opens the door for that next generation of exciting young talent. When we started in 2014, our original intent was, and when we presented the proposal to start League One to Ontario Soccer, it was to be a U20 focused league. We had in mind more of a, you know, looking at junior hockey model and saying we have all these really good young players that need to be competing against senior age players. But we also saw that because there was no professional league catering to Canadian players, we needed to expand that reach, that base to encompass older players as well, slightly older. So we changed our policy to U23. Who knows what the future holds? We might bring it back down and be more young player focused. We will deal with that as it comes, but inevitably for a year or two, there's going to be a hashing out to see what the impact is going to be. But I'm not worried because we have great talent coming up through our high performance youth pathway. And this year we're starting to see the first generation of players graduating from OPDL, the 2001 class, starting to make their way into League One, by and large as call-ups, but you're going to probably see a few clubs feature some of their best U21s, 2001s. And especially on the women's side, you're going to see it in a big way. And there's a lot of talent coming through that are being trained very well and getting good competition. And we're really excited to open the door to them.
So you talk about those players coming up, and especially on the women's side, and we see with Hamilton United, they went specifically with the women's side to take advantage of that crop of players they've got coming through. Are there any teams that have you really excited, both on the men's and women's side, about their prospects this year? Maybe teams that have kind of, we'll say, dawdled along before or not been as competitive as others, and that are going to see maybe a bit of a turnaround, or maybe some new players in the game, or teams, I guess I should say, rather than players in this case.
Yeah, it's on paper there is some exciting stuff happening. I'm very keen to see our new teams. And how, you know, it's always very interesting to see how an organization puts itself together. We discussed Unionville on the men's side, they're brand new, and because they've got this professional focus, they've brought in a fair number of experienced, seasoned players to complement a young base, and I think that they're going to be very, very competitive out of the chute. We have Derby FC, who've added a men's team to their existing women's program. Again, it's going to be pretty competitive right out of the chute because I'm seeing a lot of familiar names gravitating towards that club. And they've got a good experienced coaching staff who know this level of play. So I think they are not going to be caught unaware of what the expectation is. I'm really curious to see what Ottawa South, you know, they're out in the east end of the province and we don't get to see them as regularly being based here in the GTA. But I think that they're going to have a very exciting young team. Let's see how their young talent competes against some of the really strong senior teams like you have in Woodbridge, Vaughan, you know, the perennial top of the table clubs, Sigma FC and whatnot. I think Hamilton United on the women's side is going to be very interesting. There's a ton of talent. in that part of the province, and they've got a very strong program at the younger ages that they've all kind of matured together. They're training together. It's going to be, I think they're going to be a surprise on the women's side. I think Woodbridge on the women's side has really, from what I'm seeing, has put together a bit of a super team to try to go after the dominant FC London side. So our two-time MVP in Jade Kovacevic, she's going to have her hands full leading her team to try to, because there's going to be people coming after their title. So I'm very excited for the upcoming season. I'm sure I'm missing some interesting names. I don't want to spoil anything because I don't want to let clubs. I want to let clubs do their own press releases. But I've seen some names coming through the roster sheets that I'm looking at that will be recognizable, and that's exciting. Let's see if that puts some bums in the stands and gets people watching the outstanding level of soccer that we have on offer in League One.
All right, now one of the exciting teams is one of the ones based out of Oakville here on the men's side, who have an incredible proposition ahead of them by entering into the Canadian Championships. Tell me a little bit about what that means for the league to be able to put teams into this event on an annual basis now, because from my perspective, I see that and I go, okay, well, this is one step in the staircase of where this needs to develop from a player development and a club development standpoint. What does it mean from your perspective to be able to put teams into that competition?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Open Cups. I just think it's one of the most democratic features of our sport, regardless of where in the world they happen. I mean, the FA Cup maybe isn't as prestigious as it once was, but it still has romance that almost no other tournament has. And you look even to our neighbors in the south, the US Open Cup, and there's been great stories almost every year of amateur sides or semi-pro sides punching way above their weight and knocking off MLS or NASL, USL teams who were maybe expecting a bit of a cakewalk and got shocked. So for us, this opportunity is huge because first it provides a massive carrot. Winning the league means something more now than a trophy and accolades in your local community, getting in your local paper or what have you. You are now standing on the same stage potentially as the biggest clubs in this country. And for Oakville specifically, a club that, it's been in League One now for 3 years, but this organization has been operating on, as the Toronto Lynx previously for a very long time. And I think for them, it speaks to the quality of the work that they're doing, assembling a very strong competitive side every year. This is a community that loves soccer. And I think it's going to be great to see the Blue Devils bring the profile of Oakville and Oakville soccer up a notch and onto the national stage. If they were to get past Blainville in the first round, which is possible. We're talking about relative equals, and then somehow be able to shock the Fury, who have built a very good team, even though they've had a slow start to the season. You can see the Oakville Blue Devils playing at BMO Field against Toronto FC. That would be unbelievable. And I think it would be a testament to the level of quality that exists at the grassroots level. And I consider this grassroots soccer at the grassroots level, senior level, in the province of Ontario. We are, in my opinion, the heartland of Canadian soccer. And League One success and moving now over 100 players, male and female, on from our league into professional environments is a testament to the amazing work that's done at the youth, at the community level to develop players. And really all that's been lacking is opportunity to showcase them. And this is one of those opportunities. The CPL, as we discussed before, is another one of those opportunities to showcase the talent. But the talent is there, the coaching quality is there. They just need opportunities to shine. And this is a fantastic opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time here to chat with us, Dino. I really appreciate you doing this with us. And I'm sure we'll see more of you as the season goes along.
Oh, I intend to see a lot, yeah.
this week's 4 rapid fire questions, we catch up with 2-time League One MVP Jade Kovacevic to find out what she's up to now and what she turned down this past fall from Europe.
Yes, I got a call from Marseille in France, and I got an offer from Roma in Serie B in Italy, and that happened within about 2 months of each other, one in September and one in December. And they didn't pan out for me because the timing, I think timing is everything. It's very important that everything lines up, especially if you're traveling so far to do something you love. It needs to be perfect. And at the time, I had a career that I was very motivated in. I was working with Fanshawe College, and I had to make a decision within a 72-hour period. And at the time, it didn't feel right. So I'm a strong believer in that. And, if I'm going to put my heart into something, I want it to be 100%. So. One of my fondest memories would be playing with the U16 girls that I grew up with, Oakville Titans, and us traveling to North Carolina to a camp. And we spent a week there, and I got to bunk with my teammates in the dorms. And that was just a very, very great bonding experience for us. And I think we all grew from that and grew close, and a lot of us still keep in touch today. So they'll be a forever family to me, especially in this game. So there were so many memories I could talk about, but that was definitely one that stood out. Winning the League Cup was great. Winning the league was outstanding because we proved a lot of people wrong, and we proved something to ourselves that we're able to overcome a lot of challenges. But I think our bus ride to Ottawa was great because not only was it an opportunity for us to bring up younger players within our academy for an opportunity, but it was also such a long drive where a lot of teams dropped points because of that commute. And even though we traveled up on the same day and we won, we got a shutout, that was huge for us. And also just traveling that far with the team was a great experience because everybody grew so much closer together. And I'm all about that. That off the field is very important as much as it is on the field. I would love an opportunity to prove myself and prove my worth. And I know that I've taken a different path, but I would just love a chance just to show what I have and just to help our nation out in any way that I could. Just given an opportunity would be a dream of mine.
Just tell me that I'll never lose, never lose.
Soccer World was founded in 2001. From day one, Soccer World has vowed to have a great selection and great people to show, share, and educate on the wide array of products for your game. Soccer World has a huge range in every department at all times. Cleat starter packages for only $39.99, up to all top levels of professional cleats for over $350. For recreational players to professionals, Soccer World has everyone covered. Welcome back, friends. We're here at Soccer World once again. I'm joined by Sean, and we're going to talk about a couple of different things regarding shoes, because I know there's a lot of confusion out there about which cleats you wear on what surface, and maybe your kid's sitting there going, oh, I need Ronaldo's shoes, I need Messi's shoes, and sometimes that's not really in the family's budget, so we're going to talk a bit about that. So yeah, I guess let's start off with the silos then, Sean.
Definitely.
Tell me a little bit about the Adidas Predator line that you guys have here right now.
So yeah, first of all, like most shoes nowadays, there will be different tiers to each silo. For example, one of the top tiers here in the Adidas Predator silo is the laceless model. This one here is the Adidas Predator 18 plus.
I look at the laceless model here, and I sit there and I go, I'm going to lose my slippers if I'm running full blast and I boot the ball as hard as I can. How does it keep it so that that doesn't go flying off my foot?
Well, with these boots here, they use an extremely good last and an extremely good lining within the boot just to keep it snug to your foot to prevent any of the slippage. A lot of it is due to just the entire material used within the shoe. It's a very soft, moldable material, which you only get in the top line of boots nowadays. It's also extremely breathable with the prime knit, which it's basically encompassing the entire shoe.
So then you guys have a quote unquote step down,
Yeah.
which is this model here where it's in fact just the main difference I imagine is that it's got laces.
That's essentially the only difference.
How much money does that save you then?
So this model here is a $300 model. The top end model is a $400 model. There is a couple other differences other than just the fact that they are laceless, such as like the actual sole plate and what they put into the actual sole. They use actually a little bit of the Boost technology, which is one of Adidas' most responsive materials. So it's added cushion, added comfort you get in the top model as opposed to this one. But other than that, they're essentially the same. It's very soft, very good mold to the foot, great touch on the ball. There's nothing really rivaling the touch on these boots right here.
Okay, and then you go down a couple steps more
Yeah.
to the base level model.
Yeah, so this one is one of your base level models. It's the 18.3. 0.3 is just the lower tier. Still a decent quality boot for a lot of starter players. It's got a little more of a basic synthetic they use with it, so it's a little more rigid, but it's still a good feel for a lot of starter players.
Okay, and then when you go down to this range, what are we looking at as far as price goes then?
Price-wise, these ones here are $129.99, so you are saving a little bit more money. But yeah, the difference is going to each different boots. Yeah.
And inherently the difference is then, do you require a pro level boot necessarily, or maybe is it better off to be in the family budget and stay with something in that $120 plus?
Yeah, and it's different for everyone. Like, it's some people's budget, or some people just prefer to have a higher quality boot, more comfort. So yeah, it's entirely up to them.
All right, fabulous. And then we were going to move on to talking about just the different types of boots that you guys have here, because a lot of people go and they'll buy a fancy pair of boots and they're out playing with blades on turf, and I've always been told that that's one of the worst things you can do for your own health, for that matter, just because once those teeth get stuck in the turf, it's like a Velcro, right? You're going down no matter what, and it depends if your legs go first or your top goes first, right?
Unfortunately, that is the case. So just starting with the firm ground model, which is generally used for real grass fields.
Yeah.
They do use, it's different for each kind of style of shoe, but generally it's a longer stud. It's made out of nylon in most cases, and some of them will be circular, some of them will be blades. It's kind of a mix. It's just kind of generally based on preference, but they're all designed for real grass, like firm ground pitches. Moving on to something a little more aggressive, something that's not used too much around here, mainly just for rugby or people who are looking to get shoes and going to play in Europe. They are the soft ground studs. They use metal studs in these ones here.
Okay.
Again, this is something you only want to use on really wet pitches, which is why in Canada we don't use them too much around here.
Now, is there any sort of a problem with using the actual metal studs? Because I know it was a bit problematic when I was in high school, and we're talking 15 years ago now, when metal studs were kind of coming on vogue, I guess we could say. And is that a problem for most people around here?
Yeah, the one main problem is injury risk. They are a really hard stud, so if you wear them on any harder surfaces, the shock that it gives your body, like your knees, your ankles, it's a whole lot to take, and it's much more of an injury risk. And that combined with, if you do step on someone, they're gonna feel it, and it's just
Not pleasant.
not pleasant, exactly.
Yeah. So then moving from there, we've got what we're looking at is turf shoes, right? Essentially, because we've seen that evolution come along where now I have to imagine that turf pitches outnumber actual grass pitches here in Halton region.
Here, I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so you might want to invest in perhaps a set of actual turf boots then, yeah?
Yeah, a turf specific is definitely recommended for a couple reasons. One being the injury aspect. Because they are a shallower stud, you don't get as aggressive bite into the surface. So if you're playing on turf, you still get a little bit of traction, but you're not going to be dug in and you're not going to be stuck in there. So you may have a little bit of kind of give to it, a little bit of slide, but that's a better thing than not in terms of the right surface for the right shoe.
Absolutely. And then you were talking about the toe on these as well, which is another thing that's really important for when you're looking at buying boots that you're going to have out on the turf, is that most boots aren't really made for withstanding that kind of a regiment, I guess.
Yeah. With the turf, many people have experienced it. If you think about it, like a lot of people just, when they slide on the turf, they get that nasty turf burn on their legs or elbows if you're a goalkeeper, you're sliding around. Think about that when you're dragging your toes constantly. So if you're doing movements and just dragging your toes, ball work, essentially it's your shoes that are wearing that much quicker. That's why they add an extra kind of a layer to protect from the abrasion on the actual turf shoes and the artificial grass shoes.
Okay, and then we've got another set of turf shoes. Now tell me the difference between these two, I guess.
Yeah, so these are kind of a newer design. They are the artificial grass shoe. If you do notice the artificial grass size compared to the turf size, it is a little bit longer. It gives you a little bit more traction. Reason being, the classic turf used to be very shallow. It's almost similar to like a carpet. But when you move into like the more artificial grass, the stuff that the new age stuff that they're using a lot, especially in outdoor turf or artificial grass, I should say, this gives you a little bit more traction while still having the option of being very circular, so you can get that really good kind of rotation, 360 movement.
Okay, and then I guess lastly we've got these bad boys here, the Mercurial Indoors. Tell me a little bit about these, because I've always thought, well, like, do I really need the new, like, because it seems like they've all got this sole on them like this. Why is that?
So some of them use like gum soles, but a lot of the other ones will just use kind of a basic hardwood type floor sole. So this is designed for hardwood play or just like futsal, soccer, which is like gymnasium type surfaces. It gives you great traction on it, and there's no need for any studs on that type of surface because it's just like a hardwood floor as opposed to any actual grass or anything.
Okay, and then there's quite a range in prices from these, right? Like we go from the high end here to
Certainly
a little bit lower down, and then you guys even offer a lower end entry level package for young kids. Why is that?
It's just because everyone in soccer, everyone's got a different budget, everyone's got a different preference for their style, for their feel. We carry just a large range to kind of accompany the needs of everyone. So we have basic like $39.99 shoe package that'll include shoes, shin guards, and the little back sack, up to top pro quality boots, which are like one of these, for example, in the 400 range, and info in between, just to suit everyone's likes and needs.
All right, perfect. Well, Sean, thank you so much for helping me learn a little bit more about boots here, because you can never know too much, and it's certainly better to be prepared for every situation. And yeah, thanks, man.
Just tell me that I'll never lose.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Halton Footy Corner, guys. Make sure you like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we'll see you again next week.
Play the game again.